Hey guys, so today I'm going to start with Cucumber with Selenium, and I'm going to make use of the existing framework which we have developed as a part of previous activity for automating API using Cucumber. So I'm going to enhance the same framework, uh, but I will not shy away from explaining the basics of Cucumber again. However, if you want to know more, you can actually go and start looking over the official documentation of Cucumber, which actually is here. Let me show you that link. So Cucumber IO docs, and here you will see all the, all the Cucumber official documentation on what it is, how that works, and etc, etc. And I've also recorded many videos on how to set up a basic Cucumber project. Another thing here is I'm going to make use of existing framework where it is built on Maven. So how to create a Maven project is not what I will cover here. For that, I have recorded another video which you can watch, how to set up a Maven project. So I'm going to start with the same framework where I have automated around 19 API test cases here. So let me begin. So I'm going to start with adding a feature file, or maybe before even start doing that, I will explain you what do I have in a POM file. Now, if you already are aware about how Maven works, in Maven, we have a pom.xml file where we actually add the dependencies, the reusable libraries, which we would like to use in our project. So here I have already added these dependencies. So in order to make use of Cucumber, you need to add these two dependencies, which is Cucumber Java and Cucumber JUnit, because I'm right now using the JUnit implementation of Cucumber. Then I've also added a dependency injection framework, for which I have recorded my last video, where I have used or implemented dependency injection concept for sharing of state across my step definition files. So more, if you want to know more on that, maybe you watch it. Otherwise, anyway, we are going to use this dependency injection concept again in our existing Cucumber framework, Cucumber with Selenium framework. And our target is to automate at least 50 to 100 test cases inside this Cucumber framework for Selenium. And secondly, we are targeting to automate an e-commerce website. So previously we used to automate CS cart website, which was nothing but a demo website of a online e-commerce tool. But I think there is some issue with that. So we are going to now start automating Amazon.in. So because I want this pack to be up and running even after months or years. And if we choose a temporary website, that website can go down anytime. So we will lose the usefulness of this whole pack. So I'm going to automate or work basically the choice of application or application test in this case would be our Amazon.in website. And I also intend to write few test cases, 50 to 100 test cases, manual test cases, because the first step towards automating any website is its test cases. You need to first understand the functionality, analyze the application and understand the functionality, then come up with or maybe then divide the application into different modules, a logical bifurcation, and then you start deducing test cases out of those functionalities. Once the test cases are there, then you can start automating them. That is the usual process of any automation project. So we'll discuss all that in coming days, coming weeks. But for today, this is a starter session. So I need to explain you very basic things on how to set up this Cucumber with Selenium. And I will also automate a single scenario so that you can start practicing on it, and then we'll build this framework on top of that. And we'll try to implement many different concepts of Java Selenium automation, including log4j, extend report, all the various different Java concepts. We'll try to use implementation of inheritance concepts, dependency injection, inversion of control concept, parallel execution, screenshot capturing, when to take screenshot, all that, everything, whatever you have heard of in automation world, we'll try to implement while working on this framework. Right, so let me begin. Now this is the POM file which we have here, and these are Cucumber libraries which you see, and I've also added a Selenium dependency here. Again, I am again saying it again, if you have no idea of how this works, maybe you can actually read about Maven, or you can actually watch a video, which is again published on the Automation Fraternity website, where I have explained how to set up a basic Maven project, how to add these dependencies, and I have talked about more about what is Maven and how that works in layman terms, of course. Right, so I have here added 5 dependencies. I really don't need JUnit here, or maybe rest assured, but yeah, since I'm using this project, the same project where I've implemented or automated API, so I need to keep this, otherwise it will start showing error. So I will keep it like this. And I've also added a plugin here. This is Maven Surefire plugin, and this is responsible for execution of my test case when I do Maven test or Maven install, or any phase I pass from the command line. It actually passes through the test phase of Maven, and during that test phase, this Maven Surefire plugin gets triggered. Right, I don't have to explicitly write it here because it's actually present in the effective POM or parent POM, default POM of Maven. But I wish to execute my test cases parallelly. I demonstrated that in the last video in API. So since I had to do that, I had to write these things here. Otherwise, for execution of simple test cases in sequence, you don't have to explicitly mention it. It will automatically be taken care of. So yeah, we'll talk more about this later when we start having some test cases, at least 10-12 test cases in our pack. Then we can kind of demonstrate how can we run them in parallel. And this only works when we run it via Maven. If you just go and right click on runner file, so we have a runner file. If you just right click on a runner file and you run it, this will have no impact because it will not run in parallel. It will still run it in sequence. But when it comes to running it from Maven, then it will take effect. So it can start working on that parallel. It can start executing those parallel test cases only if you're running it via Maven. Right, so once you do that, next thing is as I said, I was talking about earlier, that we have to first know what you're going to test. So amazon.in is what we intend to test, right? So I'm going to, sorry for the interruption, let me share the screen again. Right, so this is the website which we intend to automate, and maybe we can analyze it later. Maybe we can start reducing test cases later. But for now, what I intend to test right now is maybe the search, right? So if I first and foremost, what is the use of an e-commerce website? It's for different sellers trying to sell something, and different buyers come here and try to find the products and buy them. So first thing which any buyer would do is to search what he wishes to buy, right? So let's say, so the first and foremost, the most important functionality of any e-commerce website would be the search functionality. So let me search something. Let's say I'm writing here Dell. So as soon as I wrote Dell here, some backend code, some transaction happened with the UI and the server of the Amazon, and it returned me the result. And this result has all the Dell laptops here, right? Now, what should be my test case? So my test case should say simply that I will navigate to the URL, and then I will search something, maybe in this case a product or a company name, or any keyword which will indicate or point to your product. Then I would actually see if the products which I have searched for is coming as a list here or not, right? And if you notice, whatever product which we are having here, which is being listed here by Amazon, is having Dell in its description. So this could be my cue or hint on how would I validate whether the something which I've searched for is correctly being returned from the Amazon server. So what I will do is, once I search for it and I click on this magnifying glass symbol, as soon as I do that, I'll get a list, and I'll kind of fetch all this information, all the the list of items, the description of it, and then I will just check whether we have Dell present in that description, and that's how I can imply that the product which are being listed are of what I have searched for. So Dell is what I've written, Dell is what I'm getting in return. So this can be my valid test case. So maybe I'll not talk more about analysis of the application part on how will we divide it. We can have a separate session on how will we create the test cases. But for now, we'll just stick to our very basic starter test, and where we will automate the search functionality of Amazon. Later, we can start thinking about, how to manage these things, right? How can we validate the filter? Because all aspect of this application is testable. You need to test it to ensure that whether the functionality is working correct or not, right? So though these all are valid test cases, but for now, we'll focus on the first test case, that is the search functionality, right? So let me go back here. Now, since once you set up this project, set up the project where you added the dependencies, that means all the dependencies which you added will now come under Maven dependencies, right? It will come here. Again, I will say this again, if you're doing it for the first time, it will take some time for your project to be up and running, because it will actually download these dependencies from the Maven and save it in your local repository. So this points to my local repository here, okay? I'll minimize this. Next thing which I would do is to create a test case. Now my test case in this case, since I'm using Cucumber, I can write my test case in plain English format in my project itself in the form of a scenario inside a feature file. And that is the beauty of Cucumber, that you can write something in plain English format. That is the USP, unique selling point of Cucumber, which kind of brings Cucumber on top of all the other automation frameworks which have been there since past, I don't know, 10-20 years. Like TestNG was was supposed to be very good framework, but since Cucumber came, TestNG somehow got sidelined. The only reason is because TestNG doesn't have all the features, better functionalities compared to Cucumber, but it doesn't have one very important thing which everyone wants, that is your test should be readable. That is, anyone can come and start reading your test case, and it will start making sense to the person what is being tested. Because if you're writing something in a plain English format, and by the way, Cucumber doesn't only support English language, it has a support of multiple languages. So different European languages it support. I'm not sure if it supports Hindi or any regional language in India, but it does support all the many major languages of the world, right? So since we all are English driven, so yeah, English is what we are going to use here as a mode of writing our scenarios. So now let me tell you where we will write our scenarios, right? So inside a Maven file, inside a Maven project, there are usually two folders. Then one is main, then we have test. Inside that test or main, we have two subfolders. So one is Java and resources. Java is where you're going to keep all the files which ends with .java. So any file which is ending with .java is what you're going to put inside test Java, and any file which is non-Java, you're going to put inside resources, right? And since feature file is not a Java resource, I'm going to put that inside my feature file, something like this, okay? Now inside this folder, I have API like feature files mentioned here. So I'm not going to add things here because I want to have a proper segregation of functionalities in my framework. So what I'll do, I'll create inside my feature, I'll create another folder, and I will give it a name as UI. And inside this UI, I'm going to create a file. I'll give it a name as, let's say, search.feature. Okay, sorry. Now in this search.feature, now if your feature file has to end with .feature, otherwise it will not be treated as a feature file, Cucumber feature file. It has to end with .feature. I'll click on finish. As soon as I do this, you will see a template being generated. This is the doing of a plugin which I've installed in Eclipse. It is called as Cucumber plugin for Eclipse. You need to install it, but it has no connection with the dependencies. Okay, so dependencies are the one which actually executes your test cases. The feature files are just to highlight the syntaxes and all. It will just show you highlight the tags, feature, and different color coded, so that it becomes easy for you to understand. You can even navigate different steps from the feature file directly because of that plugin. Otherwise, if you have any trouble in installing it, don't worry. You still might not be able to navigate or highlight, but your code will still work if you execute a test case via Maven. Or even if it doesn't execute via Maven, you can still run it via runner. It's, as I said, it's just to highlight the syntaxes. That is it. Now I'll go back here. I'll remove all the unnecessary information which I have here. I'll remove everything. There is two ways of defining scenarios. One is like this. Second is scenario outline. This is something you can understand it as a data-driven test, wherein each scenario I would like to execute for different values. So for this row, for this row it will execute the same steps. Then for this row it will execute the same steps, and the values here will be getting replaced at runtime. But for now we'll not do this. I'll just, or maybe I'll keep it and I will comment it. So how will you comment it? By placing a hash symbol. My system is running a bit slow. So if you just place a hash symbol, this will be a commented line. So this is how you comment a feature file inside a scenario. So let me delete it for now. I don't need it. Now here I'll start mentioning my feature file name. So my feature file in this case will be search functionality, and I will remove this line. This also this you can use to add additional information, because as I said, this is an elaborative way of writing your requirements or a test case, wherein anyone can just read it and see, it will just read it in plain English format and understand better, right? So you can write some more descriptions. I'm choosing not to. Then in the title of the scenario, I will write search a product. Then in the given, I can start writing my steps basically. So this, what I'm right now doing is a kind of test case writing, but in a different way. Previously, test cases were written in a tabular format where uh, I do something and what is expected for each step is written. Right now, I'm doing it in a slightly different manner. So in a given when then statement is what I'm trying to write. You also notice this and statement below the various main keywords, like given when then are the main keywords. So given usually is where you mention the prerequisites of the test case. When is when you do something, and then is when you want to validate something. So given when then works in that way. And if you see an and statement, now and statement works in a different way depending on where they are used. So if it is and is used below given, it becomes a given annotated statement. When it and is coming below when, it becomes a when statement, and when and is coming below then, it becomes a then statement, right? That is how basically it is structured. So in my case, I want to automate a website which is called as Amazon.in. I wish to automate its search functionality. So for me, the given will be that my browser is supposed to be opened and URL is supposed to be navigated. That is what I'm going to write here. So given I have browser opened and and URL is navigated, right? Now then I don't need for this given, and I don't need it, so I'll remove this and part from here. Then what I'll do is in the when part, I'm going to write. So now this when is what I will do, or a user would do something, right? In this case, what the user is doing, user is searching for a product, isn't it? So I'll write here in simple term, in simple English language, when I search for product as Dell. Now, if you notice, I am putting this Dell in a double quotes. I'll tell you the significance of it later, but for now, I just keep it as it is. I search for product as Dell, and then what should happen? I should go for a then statement. I'll remove these unnecessary ands from here. Then I, or maybe I should write then product list should appear pertaining to the product searched as Dell. So this becomes a test case for me, and anyone can come and read it and they can understand. When I say anyone, it could be your manager, it could be your manual tester, it could be a BA, it could be a client, it could be anyone who is not very familiar with the code. And even though a person who is not very familiar or person who is very familiar with the code, even he will find it easy to read and understand what is being tested in a test case, rather comparing this with a test which is present inside a code and our test method. So having to read it there and understand what's happening in the test case, it's really easy for anyone to understand it from here. So that is the biggest advantage you're going to get when you use a Cucumber framework. So Cucumber is not only available in Java, it was originally written in Ruby. Then they have created different bindings for various languages. So now Cucumber has support in all the major languages, including Python, Java, C#, JavaScript. So it has different applications in different languages. Now, without wasting further time, what I'm going to do next is, so once your test case is ready, so if I can before I move forward, let me narrate the test case. So in test case, what I'm going to do is I'm searching for a product. When in the given I have written I have a browser opened, and URL is navigated. Now notice I'm not mentioning URLs here because URL is something which is subject to change. URL doesn't remain constant. However, in our case, because we are using an official production website, Amazon.in, so maybe in this case URL is constant. But usually in a projects environment and real and world environments, there are different you can say URLs. So it could be a development URL, it could be a staging URL, it could be a test URL, it could be a UAT URL. So your test spec is supposed to be should be able to execute on different URLs, the same test case in different URLs, and that is why you do not hard code the URLs in any way anywhere inside your test, neither in your feature files nor in your code. Usually it resides inside configuration files perhaps, or you can send it as an outside parameter. Both the ways we will see later. You can also mention inside your POM, because POM can have a dynamic behavior, right? So in your pom.xml file, there's a provision to put some properties here also you can choose to opt your URLs, but usually it's kept inside configuration files, something like this, which I have already implemented for my API. So this is like a API URL, right? Similarly, we can add a URL here and we can say this is a UI URL or something like that. That we'll do later. For now, we'll keep things simple. So once I do that, these are marked as yellow. Why yellow? Because right now Cucumber plugin, which I have installed as a part of Eclipse, is not able to find the implementation of this step, this Gherkin step. By the way, this what I'm writing here is called as Gherkin. Gherkin is you can say a Cucumber language, not really a language, but yeah, there's a syntax to it that whatever you wish to write has to be written in a specific format. So either step can be a given, it can be a when, or it can be a then. However, there are a few more like and, but, backgrounds. We are not going to talk more about it as of now. We are going to keep things simple. But this syntax, what you have here is called as Gherkin syntax. Gherkin syntax have these keywords: feature, scenario, given, when, then, and whatever you wish to write has to have a proper structure, right? So everyone uses the same structure and everyone understands the same structure. That's the purpose of having this format. Otherwise, anyone can just come and write anything. It will, without having a protocol or a syntax or way of writing, things can get messy. So they have designed or defined a proper way of writing your requirements or test cases inside a feature file. Now, once we create our test cases, in this case, the next step is to generate its corresponding step definition files. Now, what is step definition file? Step definition file is a Java file, which contains methods, and each method is kind of associated with a specific step of Gherkin, right? So in general, when you see here, this acts as a caller of a method. Now that method contains the task or goal which this step is supposed to be doing. So for example, this is I have a browser opened and URL is navigated. So in this particular step will be calling a method and that method will be responsible for opening the browser as well as navigating the browser. Similarly, this step is responsible for searching a product. So there will be a method associated with it, which will first find the product, or basically just enter the text in the text box and then click on the magnifying glass or search button, and this will be responsible for validating. So each step here, you understand it as a method, associated method present there, right? So that is all Cucumber does. Now Cucumber doesn't generate, or Cucumber doesn't create a test method test for you automatically. It can only generate the associated step definition methods. Then the other intelligence part, the other automation is what you have to do, or an automation tester has to do, right? It only does a binding. This process is called as binding. So my English statement is now binded with a method, a corresponding method, and in what is to be written inside that method is what I have to write. So Cucumber will not do that for you, right? Sometimes people confuse it with that it is you don't have to code anything, because Cucumber generates the code automatically, right? I've heard this from many people who are new to Cucumber, but it's not the case here. Okay, all right. So this also acts as your, previously we used to call it something like keyword driven framework, right? What is a keyword driven framework? In keyword driven frameworks, that is what we used to do. We used to create different English keywords, and then we associate the methods with it before Cucumber came into being. And Cucumber kind of took that idea up, and you can understand a Cucumber framework is a form of a keyword driven framework which we used to develop previously in using various tools. So I started my career with UFT, QTP, and QTP there was this concept of keyword driven framework where we used to use an Excel file, and inside this Excel file, instead of having this feature file, we used to have an Excel file, and each sheet represents a feature here, and in each row we used to write some English formatted text, and which used to call a corresponding method in the code. So something of that sort is now implemented as a part of Cucumber. So Cucumber is a form of a keyword driven framework. Having said that, it is quite different than how a keyword driven framework used to be implemented earlier. So previously they used to use Excel. Now we have a separate feature file concepts in Cucumber. The quite new things have been introduced now. But nonetheless, it is a keyword driven is a type of keyword driven framework. Now what we do next is we are supposed to be creating a step definition file for it. But before we even be able to do that, we need to create a runner file. So what is a runner file? A runner file is a file which is the entry point of the execution. Now any automation test cases, any execution test framework has to have an entry point. Now entry point, sometimes people call it as a driver, right? Now a driver is something which manages or which has multiple jobs. So first job role is it will start the execution. It has the capability to start the execution. Second is it can choose what should be executed, what should not be executed, right? Third is it can do some connections, right? Some configurations. It can also choose to do some reporting part. So you understand this run test as a driver of Cucumber. That means if you want to run anything, if you want to kickstart your Cucumber execution, this is the place where you wish to do it. So this run test right now I created for my API test cases. For my UI test case, I need to create a separate runner file. However, I could still make use of it, but I would need to make few changes here and there, because right now this is configured to fetch feature files from API folder present inside feature. So it will only fetch things from features.api, only these feature files. I don't want to mess things up, so I will create a separate run test file for my UI test cases. So what I'll do, maybe to keep things simple, I will just copy paste, and I can write run test UI. Okay, and maybe I can rename this and say sorry, I will have to refactor it and say this is my run test API perhaps. Okay, finish. So I have this new run test UI file, and if you notice that I have two things here. Now the class which I have run test UI is empty, nothing is there. Forget this comment. Okay, now next thing is, it is this class is annotated by two annotations. So run with, this run with annotation is I have borrowed or imported from the JUnit runner. So it's inside JUnit library, and that's why JUnit is important, because Cucumber in this case uses JUnit to get executed, right? So it uses JUnit. Cucumber uses JUnit for it to be executed. So I'm using this run with, and inside this run with annotation, I'm passing cucumber.class. This is how I'm mentioning that JUnit will trigger it, and JUnit will use existing cucumber.class to execute this test cases, and that's how test cases starts executing using Cucumber. Now, second annotation which you see here is Cucumber options. Now, this is the way, as I said, it acts as your driver, and driver has a way of configuring what needs to be executed, what need not to be executed, what will be the configurations of feature versus glue, and few more things we'll talk about later. All right, so I'll just remove this. This is the reminiscence of my old test runner file, so I'll remove all that. Now, first and foremost, I need to mention this feature and glue. What is a feature? Feature files, feature inside these features parameter of this Cucumber option, I need to mention where my feature files are. So in this case, my feature files are kept inside features UI. So I'll write here features /UI. Where is my glue test present? Glue test means where is my, as I said in the beginning, that everything here is associated with a method. Now where the method decides is called as test step definition files, step definition.java files. So these files I need to mention here, that my feature file is kept there, which is fine, but where is my step definition files? It's called as glue option. So inside glue I need to write, even you can see it here, where to look for glue code, step defs and hooks. So step defs are present here. My API step defs are here, but I will move this. So I will have to create a package, and I will say my UI step defs are placed inside UI package. So now I have created a separate package structure called as stepdefs.ui. So this is also I will go and change. Now tags as it is, I'll keep this as it is for now. This is just the how part, like not the how, the what part, what test case is going to be executed is what I can control from these tags. Okay, we'll talk about it. I have already talked about it in the case of feature development of API framework, but I will have to cover it again later. For now, I'll keep it blank. Now, next thing is the plugin. The plugins are used to mention the reports part. So what kind of reports I wish to create or generate is what I'm going to mention here. So I have written here pretty HTML and JSON. Okay, HTML is how I am telling it that I wish to generate an HTML file. JSON is what I am writing here for saying I would like to create a JSON file as well. Apart from HTML file, we will also try to create a JSON file. Now, what will be the use of JSON file for the reports? Now, this reporting mechanisms in Cucumber are there to support various report generation tools, right? So, for example, if you're running this Cucumber pack from Jenkins, so Jenkins has a plugin. That plugin is responsible for generating a report in Jenkins dashboard. Now, that Jenkins plugin or software actually uses JSON report to generate its HTML report on top of Jenkins. So we really don't need it for now here, but we need this one. We don't need it, but I will keep it as it is. And then we have an extend report concept, right? So extend report is also something which is a general library available over internet, which you can use to generate your very good looking HTML, rich HTML web, reports. And that is why I have written here. So this is what I'm going to put here later, so that there will be a report which will be good looking and not a very fundamental basic reports which Cucumber generates by default. So that again I will do later. For now, I'll just keeping it here as commented. So I'll just keep it, copy this here, and I will paste it here inside plugin, and it will start generating extend report. Of course, there will also have together configurations, but as I said, we need to keep things simple. I'll not use it as of now. Then we have an option called as strict true and dry run. Strict true is simply used if it is not able to find any corresponding step definitions for any step of Gherkin, then it will just say I will not execute, first implement that. So I'll retain here strict test2 for now. You'll start to understand these things later. For now, we have to keep this. By the way, this is not mandatory, okay? So I can remove this as well. Then dry run, true or false. Dry run is actually a very useful feature of Cucumber. So using this dry run, you can actually generate the signature of the step definition methods. Yeah, so dry run is right now I'm making it as false because I would like to generate the step definitions files, and I don't actually want to run it. So dry run will be marked as true in this case, because I want to dry run it, as the name suggests. I don't want to actually run it. I just want to dry run to see all the steps are present there or not. Right now, this is what I'm going to execute. So what I'll do, I'll go to my run test API or run test UI, or in this case, right click on it and do a run as JUnit test. Right, as soon as I do this, it will execute it and it will say that you can implement missing steps. Right, so it couldn't find these steps here, these methods, associated methods. So what it did, it generated it for you. Right, this is what Cucumber does. Where it couldn't find it, it generates a signature of the method, not the complete method implementation by itself. Okay, so I'll go back here inside UI. I'll create a file. This will be called as my, let's say, search step defs finish. Okay, and search step defs will have my these methods, and I will import these annotations: given, when, and then. So how it actually works, I'll just quickly explain it. How it actually works, this statement is written inside, besides given. So what Cucumber will do, Cucumber will generate a corresponding or a matching method. So matching method would be that this is a given statement and this will be its text, and that is how basically it matches. So at the rate given, inside this, the exact text which I wrote there is actually being displayed here. Second thing is, which I also said I'll explain later, is this. This is called as parameter. This is how you can pass the parameter from a feature file, right? So I can use the same step. This is used for reusing of the step. For example, instead of searching for Dell, I would like to search for, let's say, HP, right? So I need not create another step definition file or step definition method. I can still use the same method, but this time the argument will be HP, right? So this is how Cucumber handles it. If something is a parameter, you can mention it like this. Cucumber mentions like this, or you can also do it by yourself. It's not something that only Cucumber can generate. You can write on your own. Okay, so this is how it identified that this is a parameter, and this parameter will also will get saved here and will be passed inside this method like this: string. The string will have the value as Dell. If you will write HP there, it will have a value called as HP, and that is how basically it works. So now I have reached a point where I can start implementing my code, right? Now Cucumber job for now is done. As far as development is concerned, development of a test case is concerned, Cucumber is kind of done with it. Now comes the job of other libraries, wherein, as name suggests, of this first step, which is I have browser opened, URLs navigated. So for this you need to use Selenium. So for using Selenium, you need to start writing few basic steps. So I don't know how much you guys are aware about Selenium, but Selenium in itself is an automation tool, which is used for automation of the browser, any kind of browser. So all famous browsers is being covered inside, or you can automate all the browsers using, Selenium. And if you notice, for Selenium, I have added a dependency here. If you notice, I've already added it. So first and foremost, for Selenium, what you need to do is to create a object called as WebDriver. Driver is equal to new Chrome driver, because I want to use a Chrome driver. Then you will get errors. You have to resolve it by clicking here and importing these classes. This, as soon as this step executes, it opens the browser. The browser will be opened. Next thing which you like to do is to the driver should navigate to a URL, right? In this case, what is the URL? URL in this case is my Amazon.in URL. This is the URL which I need. So I will go back here and put it here. Now it's not a good idea to write it here for now, because anyway it has to go inside config. Right now we'll not do that, so we'll keep it an instance variable. String URL, and here I'm going to write it, and I'm going to just pass this inside my test. So I can write here like this URL. So now as soon as I run this test case, what will happen? It will open the browser and navigate. Okay. Next thing it would do is, next step which we have here is search for product as, I search for product as this, Dell, right? So what I have to do is I need to locate this element, because I need to perform an operation on this text box, isn't it? So what I need to do, I need to first find this text box, right? So what I'll do, I'll right click, I'll click on inspect, and I will try to understand its properties. So property here is, this is an input tag object or locator, and whose ID is to tab search text box. Okay, so I can actually make use of this ID here. So I'll copy the ID, and then I can write the statement. The statement will be driver dot. Okay, now the problem here is the driver which I've defined here is not accessible inside this method. Now this is a very typical problem of Cucumber, wherein the problem is, as I also explained this in my previous API framework, but as I promised, if you are not doing that, then I need to explain it again. The problem is that the steps are represent separate method. So you need to find a way to pass the information between different methods. In this case, things will be simple, because if I want to pass a variable object across different methods of the same class, then all I have to do is to make it an instance variable. So once I do this, let me mark it as null. Once I do this, I will not be declaring it here like this, and now I can access it here. So now it will become accessible. Now the later problem comes is when I have to share these objects across different methods of different classes, right? And that is where we actually use dependency injection called as sharing the state. We'll come to that later, how we'll pass the driver across various different steps of different classes. For now, we'll have to keep things simple. So we'll define it as instance variable at the top, and here we are going to write a statement. So statement will be, the method is called as find element. As name suggests, it will find the element inside the driver. What is a driver? Driver represents a browser, as simple as that. Inside driver, I want to find an element. How will I find it? I'll write by dot ID, because I search for an ID here, isn't it? So I'll write here by dot ID. Inside this ID, I'm going to write this to tab search text box. Okay, bracket. Now the ID is searched. Now once the ID is searched, I have to store it somewhere. So I will create a web element. Now in Selenium, whatever you see inside a page, it has actually two main objects. One is web driver. Web driver represents a browser, and whatever you see inside a web browser is actually a web element. Of course, until unless it is an HTML element, so it becomes a web element. So find element actually returns a web element. Now this is a method. It accepts something, which is this, and it of course returns something. So it returns a web element. So I'll write here like this: web element search box, and let me see. Element. Am I making a mistake? It's not coming here in the IntelliSense. Oh, okay. I made a mistake here. Driver.find element. It will return me a web element. And then search for product as. So I have found the element. Now I have to type a value inside it, isn't it? So I'll write search sorry, search box dot send keys, and the send keys I need to write here product, right? So I will write here product. Now it will type the product here. It will type the product here. So I need to click on this button as well. This magnifying button, right? So what I'll do, I will have to search for another element, and I need to see here what is its properties. Its property is nav input value as go. Now it doesn't have any ID or name or something which I can directly use. So I need to write a XPath for it. So let me show you how will I write an XPath for it. So what I'll do, wait a minute. What I'll do is I will do a control find here. I'll write double quotes, sorry, double slash, and as its name suggests, it is a input. So I'll write here input, and in the bracket I'll write here as value as go, and that's how it's able to find it. I understand that you are not getting how I'm writing it if you're new to XPath. Again, I will explain this later. How will you generate an XPath? And we'll take a separate session of XPath. It's a big topic, but just to give you some idea about it, I'm writing this, but this double slash actually means find anywhere in the document. This is my tag name of the element. This is what I wanted to identify. So I've written the tag name. This input is a tag name, and this type, class, value, tab index, these are attributes of this element. And submit, nav input, go, 10, these are attribute values. So tag name, this is your attribute, this is your attribute value. So I'm making use of this attribute value. Now to mention attribute value, you need to write at the rate, as a prefix to that. So I am trying to identify this object based on value attribute. So that's what I've written, at the rate value is equal to go. This gives me a location of this particular element, and I'm going to write this here. Exactly what I've copied from there, XPath, and I can write here search button. Okay. Now next thing which I would like to do is to click on the search button, right? So I'll write here dot click. Now this particular step is also ready for me, where I search for product as this, and when I search for, I send keys there, and then I'm searching for it. Cool. Now last step which is still remaining is then product list should appear pertaining to the product search as string. So right now what I wish to do is, once it is searched, once the search is completed, I need to identify which of the items, whatever item which is being listed here actually corresponds to the same thing which I've searched for, right? So now to do that, it is a bit different, I would say difficult at this stage if you're not very familiar with Selenium. So instead of go and find each and every element and its corresponding text, as I said, which would become difficult, I would just simply see whether the result has come or not. I will only validate till that point, and will not right now work towards identifying these elements, fetching the text, and validating whether del is coming in these text or in description. So what I'll do, I'll find out maybe if I could find something here which corresponds to, or which can imply that search is coming, or maybe I can simply check this for now. Maybe I can check only this much. Okay, so what I can do is, let me see, do I have a element? So let me search for a product. Maybe I can check it for the product only. So if I check this is the element. Now this element is, maybe this is what I'm interested in, right? So maybe this is the class. If I go and find the XPath for it, so I'll do a span, and inside this my class is this, then I get the element. This is my first element. However, if you can notice, I am getting 16 of these. So it is actually highlighting all the elements. So if I use this XPath, it will actually return me all of these elements basically. But as I said, I want to keep things simple. I'm not going to iterate or loop or something. I will just simply use these statements here. So let me write it. Web element product description is equal to driver dot find element by dot XPath. In the XPath, I will write this, which I've copied from there. Now this actually will give me only the first element. If I would have used here find elements, it would have given me a collection of web element. But right now, since I'm not using find element, I'm using only find element, it will go give me the first instance of it, the first element, only the first one. So once I get this first element, I can find the text inside it, isn't it? So for any element, you will be having these methods available, some get methods. So get attribute gives you the value of the attribute, right? These are the attribute values. This is, as I said, this is the attribute, this is the tag. But I'm interested in the text part of it. So any element can have a attribute and can also have a text. In this case, span, this element has this text. And I'm interested in that text. What I'll do, I will write here dot get, and I'll select get text. Get text. So my text will be returned here like this. I'll say description, and this description is what I would be validating. So I will use, for example, here in this case, I will be using the different ways of putting assertions. I will keep things simple. So what I'll do, if my description dot contains string, that means product name. So this is what I'm interested in. If my description, which is coming here, contains the product name which is being sent from feature file, that is your del. If this contains del, then I would like to write here assert dot assert true, because I want to mark my test case pass or fail, isn't it? So I'll write here assert dot assert true. Come on, assert true, and I will write here true, because I am explicitly passing it. Validation I've already done here. I'm just marking. This is what I'm writing for marking the pass. And then I'll write here else assert dot assert false. Here I will write the message because it's going to be failing. In the message I will write product not correctly displayed in the search result. In condition, of course, it will be false, because I want to explicitly fail it. So I'm writing assert false, sorry, it will be true. So I'm marking assert false, and since it's coming true here, it will record a failure in my report. Right, so my test case is now up, is ready. Let me just try to run it. So to run this, I would need a Chrome driver.exe. In the case of Windows, in the Mac, it's simply Chrome driver. If you notice, I did not mention any Chrome system.set property Chrome driver, webdriver.chrome.driver, because I've already placed this Chrome driver file inside my root folder, inside my project name itself. You can see it here. If it is present here inside the root folder, I really don't need to actually mention the property here. So all I've written in here is driver, the URL, and here I'm searching for it, and here I am simply validating it. So now if I want to run it, I will go here. I will have to make this try run. It was marked as true first. I have to make it as false. False means I actually want to run it, and I will actually go and run it from here for now. So run as JUnit test. So it will start running. It will open the browser, enter the del, search for it, and the list will validate it. And I will come here. It will say it's passed. And to check the report, I can actually go right click here and I can refresh it. and I can go to target in the HTML folder. How will it save reports here? Because I have mentioned it here. I have written in the plugin HTML target HTML. Target HTML means inside the target folder, create a folder called as HTML, and inside that save it, save the record, save the report. So I right click on the index file where my report will be present, and this is not giving me the right picture, something about caching of the browser. So instead I will open it inside the Chrome, and this is my test case. So you see, given I browser this test case showing as passed. Nothing is being displayed here as a record what really happened, no screenshot, nothing. That we are going to implement later. But for now, just try to create this test case, and I will cover the rest of the development of this test case in the next videos. Thanks.